Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So, learning power, turn pester power into parent power. It's one of those things that we know when we have children, we have this built in guilt complex about when they want something, we want to get it for them, even if we don't really want to because they're pestering us. So, how do we flip that around and take charge and stop spending money on stuff that we don't want to spend money on? Um, Very good question, and I'm hoping that through this we will answer it. So, my name is Juliette Collier, Director at the Campaign for Learning. Our whole mission as a charity is around promoting learning and helping people have happier, healthier, wealthier lives. Before we start, what I'd like to do is to have a poll, and if you could respond to this, I'd be really grateful because it just enables me to judge at the beginning of the session how you feel and how you feel at the end of it. So we'll ask the same question at the end. So, how best describes how you feel about talking to your children about money right now? On a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being anxious and unsure, and 5 being really confident and clear about talking to your children about money. If you could vote now, that would be fabulous. Thank you. I'm hoping the voting's going on. I can see a poll has come up, but I can't see that I can vote. So hopefully you all can. If you can't, can you just put in chat if you're having difficulty voting? Okay, everybody can vote. Fabulous. I just can't see the results. That's no problem. It doesn't matter. Wonderful. Okay, thank you. So, thank you for completing the poll, and I'm going to start. So, why do we need to talk to our children about money? So, one of the things is that money is actually invisible, increasingly invisible, particularly since the pandemic. We shop online, we use online banking, and it's estimated that by 2028, only 9% of all the transactions, everything we do, will be cash. And this means you can't see money. So, unless we're talking to children about money, how will they learn about it? How will they learn about money unless we actually make an effort to speak to them directly about money? Really interesting data from the Money and Pensions Service that children's money habits start to be formed before the age of 7, which is really young, that they're seeing you doing things and they're learning about money already by the age of 7. And only 40% of 7 to 17-year-olds say they remember learning about managing money at school or college. And this is a really killer stat, which puts a lot of pressure on parents. So 91% of 7 to 17-year-olds say that they turn to their parents for advice about money. But we know that there's a bit of a gap there because we also know how many young people are falling into financial difficulty as they move into adult life. So that's one of the reasons, that it's really important because they're not getting it in school. And we know that the consequences are quite serious. And one of the brilliant things about talking to children about money when they're very young is that if they make a mistake, the difficulty they get in is very tiny. The consequences are very small. If they make a mistake when they're older, for example, taking out when they're 18 a credit card with a high interest rate, that can have a serious impact on their financial well-being. So talking to children from a very early age is really important. What does the evidence say? So one of the things we know is that children and young people aren't actually very confident about them managing their money. Even when they get older, 16 or 17, only about 51% say they're confident about managing money. So you can see what the gap is there in terms of what we need to do. don't schools teach about money? Well, it's not compulsory in the primary curriculum at all. And although 95% of secondary school teachers think that financial education is an essential life skill, the percentage of teachers that actually report financial education being a high or medium priority in their school is only 35%. So you can see that, schools have got so much to do, but also the teachable moments don't happen in the classroom. They happen at home. The things that children are learning all the time, you can't timetable. And families, therefore, provide the most important opportunity for most children to see and talk and learn about money. So that means that what you do as parents in helping children make positive financial choices as they grow up is absolutely essential. It really matters. So no pressure. And one of the things in terms of the research, this is again Money and Pension Service research, shows that talking about money is the very first step in building children's financial skills and confidence. So if you have conversations about money with your children, that's going to have an impact when they become an adult. If children are given money regularly, now that doesn't necessarily mean pocket money or money for chores. It could be that you just give them some money to choose a particular type of food. So say you buy a packet of biscuits every week, give them the money and let them choose how that money is spent. And also thinking about how you can get them to take responsibility for spending and saving from an early age. And this comes into choices and consequences. So if they spend it on this, they can't have that. And those kinds of lessons are really simple to do and embed in everything you do with your kids, but actually they're really important. So it is actually the everyday conversations. It's not sitting down and I'm going to teach you about money that enable children to build their good habits with money and become, build financially smart adults. So the next thing I said I was going to talk about is what do we need to talk to children about? What kinds of things do we need to talk to them about? Obviously, what things cost. And, very often children won't know that all the bills that you're paying and all of those things. It's not unusual for a teenager to get to 14, 15 and not know that when water comes out of the tap, you're actually paying a water bill. Unless you talk to them about it. And that's not about saying, something's really anxious or making it a worry or a problem for them, but it is about sharing what things cost. And also, for example, when you're at the supermarket, saying, is this better value than that? It's thinking about, what's the best value for money. Also helping them understand about what the difference between is something you need and something you want. So the needs are all the essential things that we have to have, which is, food. We have to have food. We have to pay the water bill and have water. We want heating. We need heating. But it's really interesting for a child they have very subtle understanding of what is a need and what is a want. So, for example, quite a young child will say, is a book a need or a want? Well, if it's something that I have to have for school, then I need it. If this is something I want to read, then I want it. And getting those conversations about what's a need and a want. Then the choices and consequences. So, if you have this, you can't have that. Or, well, actually, we need to spend money on this. And that means we can't have money for the things that you want. And that's a perfectly okay thing to say. Also getting them into the idea of saving something. And that doesn't have to be very much. There's a penny challenge, pennies to pound challenge that we do, where every day you take a month and you say, okay, today on the first day of the month, we're going to save 1p, and you put it in a pot. The second day of the month, we're going to save 2p. If it's an older child, it might be, different. Or it might be that you want to, but what's brilliant, so the most they actually ever put into the pot is 31 pence. But by the end of that month, they've got nearly £5. And then, that gives an idea of how money grows. It's a really simple thing to do with young children. Saving for something bigger, saving for a rainy day, how to create a budget, if they want a particular toy, and how they can save the money to get that toy. Likelihood is that by the time they save the money, they may want something different. But the idea that that delaying the immediate, oh yes, you can have that, enabling them to understand that if they create a budget and they save, they can reach a goal. And also how we can save money, as in reducing costs of things. That's a really clear thing that also links to the environment, wasting electricity and stuff like that, which is expensive. So all of those things are really, really useful to talk to children about. And you can talk to them about it from a very, very early age. As soon as you're able to communicate with them. They may not be able to talk back, but just talking to them, even as babies, actually reinforcing some of those ideas, is talking to them before they can actually speak, is a really good way of embedding those things. So what I would say is there's no age too young to start trying to talk to children about money. What do we need to talk to children about? Creating a budget and sticking to it. This is a really great video where they go on a family trip and they portion out all the money into what they're going to spend, what the tickets for the place they're going to is, all of those things. And as soon as they arrive, they hadn't factored in parking, which immediately means they've got less money in their budget. And then they decide they're going to have chips, but that means they then decide to spend lots of money on hook a duck, and they haven't got enough money for chips. So having the choices that they make and the consequences lived out in a family outing is a really good experience for kids taking over a family budget. The one I wouldn't recommend is where they take over the food budget. There's one where they give the kids the week's food shopping, and what they end up doing is, well, all I can say is that by Friday night they're having Rice Krispies for tea. But giving children responsibility for managing their own money is one of the most effective ways that you can actually embed good money habits. Because if you're taking the choices away from them, and sometimes it's really tempting to do that if they've got some birthday money and they want to buy something that you think is a real waste of money. You can say that, but ultimately let them make that choice and then realize actually that it wasn't good value for money, or they didn't really want it. So sometimes learning from those mistakes is really valuable. For younger children, use stories to help them learn about money. This is a brilliant book called Spend It, where in Bunnyland, carrots are money. And this little bunny has to decide, he wants 3 different things. He hasn't got enough carrots, and he has to decide which he's going to choose. So in terms of, helping children understand they can't have everything they want, it's a great book. But there are loads of stories, traditional stories like Jack and the Beanstalk. So they didn't have any money. Jack goes to sell the cow. Why is Jack's mum a bit cross when he comes back with beans and not any money? Those kinds of conversations. This is a lovely thing if there are money worries and you think your kids are, it's not specifically about money, but it's called the Worrysaurus. And the stories and activities that help children deal with worries. And one of the lovely things that you can do, the story is read online as part of the Waterstones, it's a free resource, is to make a happy box. And this is very simple things that you can do with a tiny child. If they're anxious about something or they're worried about something, you can make a special book and a box and you can decorate it or whatever you want to do with it. You don't need to decorate it, but just make it a bit more special, and put in things that make them happy. You know, that could be a photo, it could be a little card, it could be a soft toy, anything that they like. And while you're at it, you can make one for yourself that might have things that you like in it. But anyway, I think everybody should have a happy box. Great pet sale. Fabulous. They've got a sale of everybody wants to own a pet shop. All the animals must go. And it's really brilliant about what can this boy buy? How many pets can he buy with his pound? Lots of lovely techniques for on CBeebies around, you know, again for younger children, and I'll move on to resources for older children in a minute. 7 techniques for helping kids keep calm, because we all know, particularly with young children, they'll have a meltdown. If they want something, they want it, and all they're going to say is, I want it. And then they'll get really distressed. They won't be able to self-regulate their emotions. There are some really simple techniques. I'll give you an example, for example, that I've run with my 5-year-old grandson, which works every time. And that is, if you can see they're starting to build to a tantrum or a kind of meltdown, put something on your hand, like it could be a leaf, it could be, I pick some grass and just put the grass on my hand and get them to blow on it, and get that when they blow it off, put it back, see if you can blow it faster. And they actually regulate their breathing, and it's also a distraction from the thing that they wanted to do that you don't want them to do. The thing is with, and you know, I've had lots of experience of tantrums, but the thing is, every time you you do what they want or buy them what they want because of the tantrum, what you're saying is, this approach works. You're saying every time you have a tantrum, and you know, you'll get what you want. So that's why if you want to stop them, you have to be firm. But even though it's exhausting, and you know, you might be, you know, you might not want to fight that battle right now. But I think there's a really strong emotional connection between money and buying things. You know, when we talk about retail therapy for, you know, as grown-ups, that happens for children too. And so it's helping them to be distracted, do things that don't cost money, and move them away from the thing that they want. Definitely easier said than done, but there are some tips that you can get on how to do that. This is for slightly older children. It's a brilliant book called Millions by Frank Cottrell Boyce. And 2 brothers find some money from a train robbery, and they've got all this cash and they don't know what to do with it. They've got so many choices. You know, do they buy pizza with it, or do they go for world peace and ending poverty? You know, what would you choose? List of books there. Charlie and Lola, I really, really need actual ice skates, is a great book. Those Shoes is one where a boy who lives with his grandma wants a particular type of branded shoe, but his grandma doesn't want to buy them for him, and he buys them secondhand, but they don't fit. And you know, there's lots of conversations to be had around some of these stories. When you go shopping, give children responsibility with their own shopping list. Now, it doesn't have to be one with stuck on pictures, although, you know, if you've got labels from things that have got a picture of what it is on, you could stick those on. But just giving them 4 or 5 things that they have to spot from the trolley, or that they, when they're older, go round and buy, it gives them some responsibility and experience of making choices around money. But also, when you have a shopping list, you know, sticking to it unless there's a reason, and explaining the reason why you haven't. So then that, you know, you get to the checkout and you've got so many things in your basket that you actually didn't see go in, even let alone authorize going in. Food is a brilliant way to start children thinking about money, and making some fun food together. chose pizzas because they're just so versatile, and you can jazz them up, and you can really make faces and make them fun. And you can use up leftover ingredients, and you can basically make a pizza out of anything, even an end of a loaf of bread. You can use what you've got already in the cupboard, but then decide if you need to buy anything and what do you need to buy, how much does it cost. So that kind of process of planning a specific meal and making it together is a really good way of teaching children about money. There's also lots of online resources. So Money Sense for Parents, which is a NatWest website. What I like about this, it's got a range of great activities, but it's also segmented by age. So it starts at 5 and it goes up to 18, and they're all age specific. One of the things I love is some of the games you can play. So there's one called Money Cruncher, where you have to you've got a great big purse with a big mouth, and it makes lovely crunching noises as the child drops and drags a coin into it. And there's different levels of games and different types of games, but definitely look for Money Cruncher because it's rather wonderful. I would play it on my own without any children. And there's also, as well as games, there's resources, there's some advice things. So there's stuff about, fraud, things like that. There's a really good video on needs and wants and what the difference is. So all kinds of things for all kinds of, all different age groups. And some activity sheets as well. So it's not just online games and things like that you can use. This is a lovely resource. It's called Values, Money and Me. And what I really love about this is it links money to values. And when you look at the resources, you'll see some of the questions that are asked within it. There's things about you find something, do you keep it? But there's also some games, and there's also, do you need it? And I want it, do you need it? So reinforcing that idea of, do you want it? Do you need it? What's the difference between a need and a want? There's also some things on saving energy and giving to charity, and all sorts of things about doing the right thing. So there's kind of a values piece in this resource, which is really useful. And this is an example of the energy wasting one, where you have to go around and click on the thing that's wasting energy that we don't need. For older, for secondary age children, as a parent, this would be a really good starting point for you. This is actually a school resource that was funded by Martin Lewis from Money Saving Expert, and it was produced by Young Money. What I love about this is, there is very reliable, good information. You don't have to use it how a school would use it with using, any session plans or anything, but it covers so much, including going on to apprenticeships, university, employment, things like looking at pay slips. So there's lots of stuff in there, which as a parent, if 91% of kids are going to their parents to ask for advice, if you don't know something, you've got effectively a reference guide for looking it up. And I think what's really useful about this, it's completely free. You can download it from the internet as a PDF. It's also in Welsh language, and it's a great resource. So, I mean, do use that as a kind of guide for you rather than sharing it with them. This is just some examples of the types of resources, which is why it's really important for you to kind of focus on it where you don't know the answers. If somebody's asking you what APR is, whatever the question is, you've got a reference guide to look it up. And it's really well set out, very well segmented, and very clear information, and it's reliable information, and it's free. Also, you've got Life Skills, which is Barclays. So there's lots of tools and tips for families there. There's also some really good resources preparing transition. So the move to secondary school, for example, where your child's becoming more independent. And then there's also stuff on transitioning to further education or university. So there's some really good tips and skills there that some of them you could give directly, signpost directly to your children and young people. Some things you might just find quite useful for yourself. The other thing that I would say, one of the things that makes me really cross is that when you Google money advice, all the things that are paid for sponsored adverts come up first. And they're not necessarily the things, in fact, they're very likely to be things that will charge you. And any support and advice that you need around money or your children need about money, you do not need to pay for because it's there. So this would be my very first stop, would be Money Helper, because it's got all kinds of information depending on whether you want information about saving or pensions and retirement. Everything is there and it's really clear. It's completely free. And then you've also got, brilliant resources, for example, around a benefits calculator. And that's just an online tool. You don't need to put any contact details in or anything like that. You can just do an immediate calculation on your benefits based on your own circumstances, which is really useful. There's also a link to get completely free debt advice near you, and whether that's because whether you want it online or whether you want to speak to somebody, you should never pay for it. It should be free. And I would always run a mile if people start saying, "Oh, you need to pay for it," because they're doing it as a commercial thing. They're the people that come up on sponsored Google searches potentially. Interestingly, I Googled Money Helper today to get a photo of the website, and the first 5 things were not what I'd actually put in. They were related things, but they were sponsored links.